Good evening, and thank you for joining me on Politics, Power, and Prejudice with the Minority Woman Contingent. This evening, my guests are Kathy Howard and Arthur Feinstein. Today, we're going to talk about the CEQA case that is in the court with Judge Terry Jackson. Since Kathy was last here on the show, the case was heard in court. However, a decision has not been rendered as of yet. So, um, Arthur, would you tell us a little bit about yourself? You're new to the show.
I am. Glad to be here. Thanks very much.
Well, thank you.
Um, I'm chair of the San Francisco Bay chapter of the Sierra Club.
Okay.
We're around 30,000 members in 4 counties here. And we are the Sierra Club, so obviously we have concerns about nature and health issues. In terms of myself, I have been an environmentalist for around 30
Oh
years
my goodness! So you
prior
quite
to,
knowledgeable.
well, I hope so.
Absolutely.
Prior to being with the Sierra Club, and I've been member forever, but active as activist for around 8 years. Before that, I was with the Golden Gate Audubon Society and was their executive director for 15 years.
Okay.
And I've also worked on state and federal environmental issues on legislation, and mostly on water issues, wetlands, wildlife, and I'm now learning a lot about San Francisco issues. I live in
As
San
we all
Francisco,
are.
as we all are,
As we all are.
and I'm somewhat amazed that in this very progressive community, we sometimes do things that are not very progressive whatsoever.
Absolutely. Kathy,
Hmm.
it's nice to see you again, and thank you
Nice
for
to be here.
coming back to bring us up to date on what's going on here. And so tell my audience something about you.
Okay. I'm a landscape architect. I got involved in the parks in the political process about, gosh, I think it was about 10 years ago when they were going to cut down the trees in the music concourse in Golden Gate Park, those wonderful, funny trees in front of the band shell. And I went to a meeting and I was so upset, and I thought, well, I can either be upset or I can do something about it. So we worked with people. We had a wonderful group, and we saved the trees. And we also took about 3 years and we landmarked the music concourse. So I've been involved in park, especially Golden Gate Park, political work since then. I've started a few groups with other people: the Golden Gate Park Preservation Alliance, the Park Rangers Coalition, Friends of the Music Concourse, and Take Back Our Parks, and now SF Ocean Edge, where we've been very concerned about the plans to take out over 7 acres of living grass in the western end of Golden Gate Park and replace it with artificial turf and 150,000 watts of stadium lighting.
Yes, and that's where we're going to begin. Now, the last time we were here, Kathy, you and I spoke about Golden Gate Park has a master plan. The stadium, um, the soccer stadium is in contrast to what's supposed to be in Golden Gate Park. And one of the things I'm always learning when I talk to you about these parks is that San Francisco has 230 parks, according to their website, our Reckon Parks website, and it has over 3,000 acres of land that's devoted to parks, and which is a lot of land, and 1,000 of it is natural. And that was one of the things that came up. I can remember from the committee meeting in June with the May 9th that we went to.
You mean the Coastal
The
Commission?
Coastal Commission meeting, thank you,
Yeah.
and how that theme kept coming up, even though they disregarded it. So, and I think all of this open space and these parks is one of the things that makes the city very beautiful for a large metropolitan area. I think that's one of the unique qualities of San Francisco. And here now, I think Judge Jackson has a very difficult decision to make in regards to the CEQA case. And one of the things I have a few notes that came up was that, well, several things, but one was that the pollution was above the threshold for the Bay Area Quality Management district. like mouthful. And when I think about that, because we're talking about this is where children are going to play,
Mm-hmm.
a soccer field, and I thought, well, if they're going against regulations that they say that they were adhered to, where is any of this going to go? Where's any of that going to go? And they have an alternative. And also, there was evidence where these carcinogens are very serious, and if ingested, are very harmful. So I think that there's a lot that has to be considered here, because we're talking about children.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about children, and that's a very sensitive area for a lot of people.
Absolutely.
So Arthur, you are familiar with this case.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought that I attended the hearing, and I thought that the questions raised were very, very significant and important. And I didn't see them really rebuttal. I didn't see how the city could really rebuttal some of the issues that were brought up in the case, you know.
Right. Well, we agree.
Okay.
And for the folks watching, CEQA is the California Environmental Quality Act.
Mm-hmm.
And under the act, it's an informational act. What it says is if local governments are going to approve a project, undertake a project, they have to inform the decision makers what are the potential impacts of that project.
Mm-hmm.
It's purely informational. It doesn't say what the decision should be, but you have to fully reveal what the impacts are, and if there are significant impacts from the project, you have to mitigate them. You have to do something to make them less than significant.
Mm-hmm.
These are negative impacts, of course, to the environment. And so when we're talking about a soccer field that kids will be playing on,
Mm-hmm.
and we're talking about whether the substance that they're going to be playing on could be toxic to the kids,
Yes.
CEQA doesn't say you can't do it, but what it says is you better tell the decision makers that this is a toxic material that has potential impacts to the kids, what those impacts may be, and what you're proposing to do so that those kids are not poisoned or impacted. And that's what the city didn't do.
Yes.
And what the city, so as you were saying, there's an entity that regulates our air quality around the bay. They're the ones who say it's it's an air day.
Mm-hmm.
Take public transit.
Yes.
It's the Bay Area Air Quality Management District.
Okay.
And it's a state regional agency that has the ability to regulate our air and control what goes into the air. And they set what's called a threshold level for certain substances around the Bay Area. And that's one of their functions. So they can identify when's a bad air or good air. And they set, here's the level for these materials or these substances. And in the soccer field that's being proposed,
Yes.
the type of turf that is being proposed, it exceeded the threshold level that the Bay Area Air Quality Management District set out for the materials that are being used, which means that it is toxic as far as they're concerned above a threshold, which below the threshold is not significant. Above the threshold, you have a potential for causing cancer or other ills.
Let's
And
stop
what this
there. Let's stop there. Because San Francisco is a member or has a resolution that said it would adhere to the Bay Area Air Quality Management District, or a resolution I saw somewhere where they said they would adhere to that. That was also part of the hearing. Am I
Okay.
correct there?
that I don't know.
There is a resolution where they acknowledge
Okay.
what it is that they say. It's one of the cities that's a part of it somehow. There is a resolution.
Okay.
I've seen it.
Good. I'm
Okay.
glad to hear it, but
Okay.
I'm not sure that. And this is our point. And what's coming? Well, let me go back. So,
Okay.
the management district said above this level, hazard index, and for this substance we're talking about, the hazard index was 1.
Mm-hmm.
And they said if you go above 1, you have a material that is harmful to some degree to people.
Mm-hmm.
Even the city itself agrees that the hazard index of the material, the turf we're talking about, was 2.2.
Okay.
So that's
twice the limit.
twice the limit,
Of
200%
being hazardous. Twice the
of
limit.
twice the limit. So according to the Bay Area Air Quality Management District, this is a toxic material that you
toxic.
have to look at when you do a CEQA document.
Mm-hmm.
You have to inform the decision makers, hey, this stuff is hazardous,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to analyze what the impacts are to the people who are going to be around it, and what are you going to do
Absolutely.
to make it better. Well, the city said, no, we don't have to do that. It's close.
Mm-hmm.
It's only twice as high.
Mm-hmm.
It's only 200% higher than the hazard index.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't have to analyze it. We don't have to tell people that it's, and that's the key. We don't have to tell people.
Now, this is what the
that
Board of
this
Supervisors
is,
decided here.
well, this is what Recon Park
Recon
presented to the Board of Supervisors.
Recon Park is rogue.
And the supervisors approved Recon Park's position. I think it goes back to Recon Park. They're the ones who did the study and did the EIR that said, we don't have to tell you that this stuff may be harmful to children, even though it's above the threshold level.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we sued over.
It's
Sierra
amazing.
Club is one of the plaintiffs saying, how could you do that? There's a threshold level. The Bay Area Air Management Quality Districts threshold levels are region-wide. They pertain to everybody in the 9 Bay Area
Yes,
counties.
they do. Yes, it does.
And so you don't have the discretion to say, we don't care what that threshold is. You are supposed to reveal to the public, which is the key,
Yes.
reveal to the public whose kids are going to be playing on that surface,
Absolutely.
that this might be a contaminated material, that is a contaminated material that might be affecting your kids. And what Recon Park is saying now in the city, in the litigation, is that doesn't apply to us. The Bay Area Air Quality Management District's threshold level simply doesn't apply to us, so we didn't have to do it. That's morally wrong.
Yes.
If it's above a threshold index, you shouldn't be scared as a responsible agency for the public to let people know that you might be exposing them. But they did, and they're refusing to admit that. That's the key part of our lawsuit, that they should have done this. They need to go back, let people know that these are the impacts that are potential, that are dangerous,
They're dangerous.
and let us have a
200%
chance
above the
to.
threshold is dangerous.
I mean, what all those parents of soccer kids have been saying, yeah, we want our kids on this contaminated material if they knew that it was hazardous.
I think that the support for it would be extremely different, because it's very dangerous.
Yeah.
And if they ingest it, it's dangerous for the children. It's dangerous for the wildlife.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see how it does anyone any good in terms of being in a park, and
I totally agree.
the environment and so on and so forth. I was just astounded as I began to read more and more, and especially what happened at the Coastal Committee meeting, where people who it was interesting when we arrived there around 9:30. Or a little bit before 9:30, they said, "Oh, public speaking is closed." Actually, they violated their own rules. I did go to their website and look at that. They violated their own rules. So it was a very one-sided speech, And I had never seen that in public speaking, because they were still giving it was still during the public comment period when they told the opponents of the soccer field that they couldn't speak. I'd never seen anything.
I was one of those
like
that could not speak.
I'd never seen anything like that with regarding the state issue. Actually, they did. I did go to the website. I'm not through with that yet, but I did go to the website and look at that.
Yeah.
That was illegal to do. I'm not a lawyer. As a friend of mine would say, I'm not a lawyer, but that was illegal to do, because that's a violation of not only the First Amendment in the Constitution, but the First Amendment of California's Constitution, free speech.
Yeah.
So I thought, wow, and for one of the chair to do that, and also someone from the Attorney General's office was there. That's a very serious thing what they did.
Yeah.
And in addition, with Supervisor Wiener being there, I do have a copy of his pledge. So he takes an oath of office to uphold the state constitution and the United States Constitution, as well as ethics as an attorney. So he's got 3 strikes there. So yeah, I've been
Yeah.
reading a lot. I
You
know,
have.
but that's what they say
Yeah.
about those of us who are square. So we're going to transition
Mhm.
for part two of our meeting, and then we're going to talk, Kathy, and
Mhm.
see the lovely pictures that you're holding.
Yeah.